And so this time I was like, I want to go to therapy. I'm slowing down. I'm getting older. There's a transition happening in my life, career-wise. I know it. I feel it because the passion is just not the same as it was. Really, really cool thing happened. As I was strengthening my mind and going through this transition with my therapist, every gold medalist needs a coach. Right. You rarely see someone who stays at the top of their game not having something or somebody coach them to be better.
It's so seductive in this world to be a victim.
What are you attaching to? What is your brain? How is your brain attaching to greatness? Or are you only looking for the bad? You made decisions to get to where you are now. It's literally just looking back and looking at all the things you had to overcome to get to this point. It just means you are actually closer to getting to where you want to be.
Welcome to SuperLife with me, Darren Oline, a podcast where we explore, discover, and share solutions that promote a healthier life and a better world. Together, we'll ignite possibilities, inspire change, and build sovereignty, creating a roadmap towards a super life for you and for all. Get ready to start living your super life. Well, thanks for coming here, dude.
I'm very honored to be here.
It's so great to finally, because it's like I was thinking about it, like we have so much history, and yet we haven't had a lot of time. I mean, I was on your podcast a little bit, and we're so busy when, you know, with Beachbody and Outbody, I still have a hard time with that.
Yeah.
But you know, it's great to have this kind of time because so much has gone on in your life from the time of Beachbody starting, and just like you're not even recognizable. I don't even mean that. You're just a different version of yourself, and then your kids. And
I mean, if you think about it, I started with Beachbody like kind of officially in 2003.
Oh wow.
Or maybe early 2004, because I was working with Kathy Smith at the time.
Oh wow.
So my introduction to Beachbody was really I was a trainer for her test group.
Oh, okay.
So 2003 or 2004, and then 2005, and at the end of 2005 is when I started developing hip hop abs. So I mean, It's been 20 years,
right?
You know, yeah. So I don't know how you feel, but as I get older, I don't necessarily feel the difference happening. But when I look back at, I mean, that was 20 years ago. I'm 46, 26-year-old me.
Right.
It is a completely different human being.
Right.
You know?
Yeah.
And it's just, and mostly up here.
Yeah.
Because physically, you know, you're going to age, but it's how you progress up here that it's just like, I wish I can put that on paper, or I wish people can put that on paper to see their progress, because everyone's so focused on like external or money or physicality or, you know, but it's like, I wish we could put our brains on paper, you know?
Which is why it's so important to reflect. You know, it's important to reflect on where you've come from, what you've changed, because you're, from my perception of you, you're actively progressing in a positive direction, facing your fears. You know, you're open about that, like, you know, and I think that's the public facing, a really good quality that you have, that you say, hey, this shit sucks and I'm facing it, and you might feel it too. And but it's wild, just going back to the Beachbody thing. I started developing Shakeology in 2006.
Oh, wow.
Right? So then I'm basically undercover for 2 years, like tinkering around. And then that in 2008, and then you, like, it's been a wild journey.
You know, it was very interesting when I was introduced to Beachbody. I had no clue what the company was. Seriously, I had zero clue. Not even when I started filming Hip Hop Abs, I was just like, hey, we're going to make some workout videos. And then I remember it was at the end of one of my workouts, and they had this big poster board, and I had to shout out like some people like, hey, congratulations. And I'm like, who am I talking to? I was like, I don't
Right.
even know what this is, because 26-year-old me, I was like, I love to dance and I love fitness. And
Right.
this was a dream that I could have some workout videos and make money. And then it just kind of was like, oh my gosh. So just to say, you were in the laboratory for 2 years. For me, I didn't even know really what was going on.
Yeah.
Outside of like wanting people to dance and have fun,
Well, I think it's I didn't either in a certain sense. They're like, here, create that and let me go do that. I had no idea what the structure of the business was.
Yeah, exactly.
Like it's because, it's like similar, like let me do my thing and you're going to pay me to do it. Awesome.
Exactly. This is what I love to do. Cool. Let's go.
Yeah. So, so now it's like, I'm curious, like there's so much to unpack in that 20 years. But like now just the mindset of, in all intents and purposes, you're going right against the grain of aging and kind of blasting any idea that people can't have massive quote unquote gains, pun intended, at their age. And like, I'm curious, what was that shift? Because you literally look at you and that back time, like you look like this young little boy.
Yeah, I was.
And we
I'm
all,
like, was I even 26? I
Yeah.
looked like I was like 19.
yeah,
Very interesting. So I had a really crazy double dynamic shift in 2022 that started in 2021. I mean, the pandemic was amazing for me. Not maybe the world, but it was amazing for me because one, I actually got to slow down.
yeah,
I remember my husband Scott was the one that went to the grocery store. I live in Arizona. I was on a tennis court and I was home with my kids. So I never left my neighborhood for a very long time.
right,
Like at least probably 5-6 months. I just didn't even leave my neighborhood. And it was amazing because I didn't have to travel. I didn't have to shoot a workout video. I didn't have to do a live event. To be straight up, I didn't even feel like Shaun T. I just felt like a dad and a husband and someone who actually gets to enjoy life, and I didn't get COVID until like the next year. So,
right,
that part was amazing. But then after that is when, things got back to moving around, and I didn't want to move around like that anymore.
Right.
I didn't. It was just like I was teaching a lot of classes. I was, trying to do live events, and I was just putting my body through it, still thinking I'm that 26-year-old. And then I realized, I was also playing tennis. I'm a huge, huge tennis fan. I haven't played in a while because now I'm like, 30 pounds heavier and it's really hard to move around the court like that. But, I was playing tennis, so I was like enjoying all this stuff. And in addition to that, creating workouts that was still pounding my body. So then I got a shoulder injury. I just felt like I had a lot of overuse in my shoulder, and I was fighting that for like, it seemed like 3 or 4 months. And then I just decided to go to the doctor, get an MRI, realize that I had a bone spur that tore my rotator cuff and I had a labrum tear. So it was just, I couldn't even reach for a cup out of the cabinet. So I had a choice to like try to do things to make it better or get shoulder surgery. And I was like, I'm just going to get surgery. I don't want to deal with this pain anymore. And they were like, you're going to have to go through physical therapy. So I was like, that's cool. Trusted my doctor. So did that, went to physical therapy 2 weeks later. But within the 2 weeks from surgery to physical therapy, I hit that experience that I was experiencing during COVID again, where I was like, I literally had my team create a healing shrine in my transformation center. I was like, this is where I'm going to eat. This is where I'm going to sleep. This is where I'm just going to enjoy all day long, to the point where my kids just came in there and slept with me at night. It was amazing. But in those 2 weeks, I actually slowed down again. And I was like, there's a shift, there's a change that needs to happen. So shoulder surgery. And then within those 2 weeks, I just started going to therapy again. I had been to 2 different therapists, one for sexual abuse, the other one just like getting older and like really trying to find out who I am. And so this time I was like, I want to go to therapy. I'm slowing down. I'm getting older. There's a transition happening in my life career-wise. I know it. I feel it because the passion is just not the same as it was. And I'm a dad now, and I never really sat down and reflected on what changes I needed to make internally to be the best dad that I could be, So I went to therapy and physical therapy. Really, really cool thing happened. As I was strengthening my mind and going through this transition with my therapist in physical therapy, there was a trainer, and she was a physical therapist, but she was also a trainer, and she was just jacked. That's just the best way. I saw her walking around, and I was like, I'm a gay man, but I was still like, who is that? I was just like, damn. So then I asked one of my other physical therapists, I was like, you think she would train me? And he was like, ask her. And so Kristen, her name is, she was walking by. I was like, can you be my trainer? She was like, yeah. And she kept walking. I was like, that was easy. Anyway, come to find out, the 8th grade, come to find out, the summer of her 8th grade year going into 9th grade, she purchased Insanity. Oh. And that was her introduction into like hardcore fitness, which then enhanced her fitness mindset. So she went to college, and obviously she became a physical therapist. So it was this really cool, like, I always say when 2 points are destined to meet, they're just going to meet. And it just happened to meet at the right time. So she started training me, and physical therapy was fine. But when we were training in the gym, I started learning so much more about my body because she had to strengthen my shoulder while strengthening the rest of my body at the same time. And she was the first trainer that I ever had that would move my body and put it into like what felt like a very awkward position while I was lifting weights. And I just was like, this is amazing. So obviously I have a degree in sports science, but everything that I learned then, and now it being applied to how I'm moving my body and healing my shoulder, it just completely changed the way I wanted to train. Because I was like, my knees hurt. Oh, well, that's because I'm not really pushing loaded weight with my quads. As soon as I started getting stronger in my quads, my knees hurt less. Then obviously my shoulder's getting stronger. And then all these things start to happen, like my core is getting stronger, which is helping like any lower back issues that I had. So that was kind of like the dynamic shift of me being like, I want to lift weights. I want to focus on this because I don't feel injured. I don't wake up, like feeling like the Tin Man from the Wizard of Oz, Right. And, and I'll be extremely transparent. Also, getting older, I'm a male, I'm getting older. And I'll say this, it's so interesting when we hear women talk about hormones, and it's like a thing, and people talk about it, and it's readily accepted and available, and people have open ears. But when men talk about hormones, the only thing they equate it to is like, oh, they're taking testosterone because they want to get jacked. Right. But for me, I was experiencing erectile, like very, very, very small ED. And I was like, this isn't right. So I went to a vitality center, and they were like, do you find yourself, is it hard for you to put on muscle? Is it hard for you this? And I was like, yeah. So that's when I had introduced my first, testosterone. And Kristen actually said, she was like, you're going to just feel better. We're not doing this for like muscle enhancement. She was like, you're going to feel better. Anyway, needless to say, after like 3 months, I felt like a different human. Lifting weights, sexually, just keeping it very real. I just felt like a different person. And I was just like, this is the path I want to go on. Like, I just want to continue to heal my body. And I was doing all kinds of body work, from dry needling to any kind of stretching you could get. Like everything. I was just doing all kinds of stuff to just heal my body, and I was just falling in love with it, which made me get really strong. And then I was able to eventually develop a weightlifting program. While all of that was happening, I was also going to therapy and just really like breaking down some walls, because maybe as but the strength that happened in the transition of my career and where I am now, and I'm vocally saying like I am transitioning into more, I just had to break down these walls, because when you're in a certain career for a long time, it starts to define who you are.
Yeah.
And then you start to funnel yourself into being this thing. And I've always described myself as a decathlete of life. You know, this is not like, you know, self-loathing moment, but I can sing, I can dance. I mean, you know, I'm a great fitness instructor. You know, there's so many things that I can do. And so I just was funneled into this fitness thing, and that's how people saw me. And I just was like, I don't want to just be that. And when you look at social media, everyone talks about, you should have a niche, you should have a niche, you should have a niche. I'm like, great. It's great to have a niche for your business, or if you want to be a social media influencer and get followers. But like, I am not in the business of, I don't want to be a social media influencer, and I'm not trying to build my following. I treat social media and my life very, very similar. It's like, I want quality people. That's it. I'd rather have 200 followers that I can get down with than the million that I have, where some of them are just, you know, not bringing quality to my life. Anyway, I say all that to say, going to therapy it just opened my eyes up to all that. And there was also a fear of wanting to show that I wanted to do something new, or try something different, or, you know, do something off the wall. I'm like, who knows? I might like it. I might not, but this is my life, and I'm only here once. I'm only here once. As far as we know, you know, no disrespect to people who are religious and, you know, they are going to heaven or hell after they die. But me, I don't know. Like, I don't know anybody that's died for like 5 years and came back and was like, yo, this is what's about to happen. I don't know that. So as far as I know, I'm only here once. Science tells me I'm only here once. And so now I'm confidently on a path to just being who I am.
Well, the cool thing is you're investigating yourself. And I think when you investigate yourself and willing to, because it is seductive to, like, this is what I've done. This is, you know, we started that way, like 20 years of it. Like, this is who I am. And this is like, you're in a sense, you completely were willing, whatever consequences, positive and negative, going, okay, well, that doesn't define me. I'm going to do this whole thing. Like, even when I saw you, like, holy shit, that makes sense. Like, in some, when I saw that, when I saw you starting to like really hit the weights and just looking at your body type, you're like going, oh my God, that guy's he's gonna get jacked.
Let's go.
You know? And it is addictive in that way. I think, you know, I picked up my first dumbbell at 16. And when you realize that you have an agency over yourself, and there's something about there's no separation, call it acknowledging or not acknowledging, but there's no separation in the self power that can have. But also there's obviously a negative side of it. I met many bodybuilders over the time. They get a little small, a little weak, and they freak out, right? So it gives kind of that reverse anorexia kind of thing. But it's interesting. I've been looking at this testosterone hormone world, because we're, on the one hand, we're getting the shit kicked out of us. Right. There's a lot of things that are leading to 1 in 4 men over 30 are like, testosterone has fallen off a cliff. Right. And we're getting hit, and a lot of, from personal care to just our modern day world. So we have to, you know, help ourselves regulate this stuff, because it's a tricky world in that way. But I think that, you know, the takeaway I get is, like, you're coming at this from a mental, emotional, spiritual place, right? From my sense of you, you're always kind of coming at it in that way. Where do you think that self-nurturing, because, you know, you had some abuse, and you can unpack what that is if you want, but you had to learn how to take care of yourself and find yourself and forgive yourself. So that I think is a superpower. It becomes a superpower, right? So, and from what I see, you want to share that with the world. You want to uplift the world, and you're very like, and you're doing it, and you've had massive impact on a lot of people, and you've always come about it from a positive perspective. And so where do you think and how do you think people listening can cultivate that self-nurturing? Because it's multiple things. It's not just I'm great all the time,
Yes.
right? How do you build that part of you as you're transitioning through many phases of your life?
It's a really great question. So for me, first I'll say this. There's something really annoying to a lot of people when they say through struggle comes strength, right? Like, because
Yeah.
it can sound like you need to go through something in order to get strong. And I don't wish anyone to have the experience that I had when I was a kid. However, when you're 8 years old and the man who's supposed to be your acting father is sexually abusing you, and you're afraid to tell the rest of your family, your brother, your mom, and you're holding this in, and you're taking the weight of the world of being a protector, keeping your family together by not saying anything. There's a lot of negative things that go into that, but there's also something really profound that comes out of that if you survive. And it's really important for me to acknowledge the people who didn't survive, the people who that happened to, that they're not here anymore because of the stress, or the people that happened to, that they went on and did it to someone else and now they're in prison, right? It's not everyone's going to have that through struggle comes strength success story like I do. But I will say this. A lot of people say that, gay people were in the closet. I'm like, yeah, I was in the closet at one point, but I was in the closet hiding from everyone. I had a My Buddy doll and the toy, I don't know if you remember Light Bright, which is still out, actually. It's called Light Bright. You put these little lights and you just kind of like put these little light bulbs in this, like on this board that's connected to not electricity, but battery. And you can create pictures with different lights. And so I would just hide in my closet. It was weird because I was hoping that people would be like, where's he at? Would like come look for me, but no one ever came to look for me. So I would just spend hours in there. But there's something subconscious that happens when a child is doing something like that. And it's like, I have a doll that I'm talking to as my best friend, and we have a toy that I'm playing with by myself, but it's like he's playing with me. And I consider that my first time of survival tactics. It was like, let me get away from the toxicity, and this is what's going to make me happy right now. Did I know that's what was happening? No. But then, I did that for a few years, definitely held in some like major anger, and until I was 14. And then, I went to my grandparents and I was like, I asked them if I can move in with them. And they were like, why? And I was like, well, you guys are getting old. You need a young, strong person around you. It had nothing to do with that. I love them, but I was like, I need to get out of this toxic household. So that's what I did. And then my life, I did grow up in the church, and my grandfather was a pastor. And so we read the Bible, we prayed, we did all the things. I was in church 3 or 4 times a week. I was in the gospel choir. I did it all. But in the Bible, it talks about, being born again. And it talks about accepting Jesus Christ as your personal savior, and you'll be born again. And so while I am not religious, I'm spiritual. But I remember the first night that I moved in with my grandparents, and I just started crying like very loud after I had gone to bed, and they rushed into my room and they started praying. And then after that, the next day, I felt like I was born again. Like I felt like I had escaped. It was like I did this fight from the time I was 8 to the time I was 12, and then 12 to 14. So it's, 6 years of literally not knowing what to do, not knowing how to escape. I literally fell in love with my abuser, like this is like the really uncomfortable things that people talk about. Like my abuser was the first person that I was in love with. And your brain does something. What's it called? What's the syndrome called? Stockholm syndrome.
Yeah. Yeah.
Stockholm syndrome. 100% experienced that. 100%. I tried to seduce him to get, to get attention. But it wasn't, then this is probably way too much for people to hear, but it wasn't until I had my first like orgasm that he stopped. And once he stopped, then it was like, wait a minute, I held all this in, like, I kept you safe. I didn't say anything. And now you're just gonna like, now you want nothing to do with me. It's, excuse me, but it was fucking crazy. Right. Like it was just it was like my brain was like literally like fireworks going off, because I knew being in love with this person is absolutely absurd, even at 12 years old. But your psyche is just, it's fighting against it, for multiple reasons. Anyway, I say all that to say, to get back to your question, I went through all that, but I had to nurture myself all the way through that. Unfortunately, I had a lot of practice. And going back to what I said about career, you kind of get stuck in this like tunnel and, this one-dimensional space. And then when I realized it's not what I wanted to do anymore, and I went back to therapy, I actually went back to, I do want to explore this life. I do want to nurture myself. So I say to people, even people who have no money, who don't have a lot of resources to change, or maybe afraid to get an education, they don't think they're good enough. Every single person, no matter where you are or what you're doing, when you get to a point where you can cognitively look back to see how far you've come, there is a progression that's happened in your life. It may have been a hard life. It may have been a little bit easier for you. Maybe your parents had money. Obviously race and culture plays a big factor in how we progress, but everyone progresses, because in order for you to get from 0 years old to whatever age you are now, you had to make decisions to make yourself thrive and survive, even if you had a horrible life. And so what I like to tell people is, imagine you're climbing a mountain that's really, really intense to climb. You're like, this is terrible. And then you get to a plateau. Plateaus, at least in fitness, everyone hates plateaus. They're like, I can't lose weight anymore. But everyone forgets to look back to be like, yo, I put in all this work. Let me go either remember or write down what I did when there was a point where I wanted to give up. Well, I didn't give up because I pushed through this. Where was the point where I had a bad relationship that I got out of, even if it was absolutely horrible? You made decisions to get to where you are now. And so that's the foundation of how you nurture yourself, is literally just looking back and looking at all the things you had to overcome to get to this point, even if everything was great. Like, I can take my track and field career. The only thing that was hard was practice, but I was given a good talent to run a really great 400-meter hurdles, which most people hate, but I was fast. And even when I was running track, every hurdle, I'm like, boom. All right, I had 10 hurdles to run. The reason why I never hated the race is because instead of looking at the fact that I got 10 hurdles to run, I'm like, every time I jump over one hurdle, I have less hurdles to go. That's how my brain works. And that's how I want people to look. When you look back to see how far you've come, it just means you are actually closer to getting to where you want to be. But people do the opposite. They're like, it's been so hard. Like, they're so focused on what they've already done, instead of being like, well, imagine if you use the momentum of the strength that you've already gained. Like, that next thing is so incredibly close. And that's how I look at where I'm at in my life right now. I'm kind to myself. And one of the things that is the best thing, I read to my kids every night. Like, that's the one thing I hate when I'm not home. But I read to them every night. From the time they were in the NICU for 3 weeks, we got home, the first book I read to them was The Garofalo. They have never missed a day of reading in their life, to the point where they're 6 and they can read 120-page book in like 2 hours.
Wow.
And we would tell them stories and we would do it. So anyway, wait, where was I going with that? Damn it. Dude, that happens sometimes. I was talking about Hold on. What was I saying?
Um,
When I talk about my kids, I get like
yeah, you
super
get
excited.
excited. Well, it's kind of the resiliency side of things, the choice, and it can get so you were saying the easily focused on kind of the negative side of things.
Oh yeah. So anyway, I know where I was going with that. So reading to my kids every night, it's been amazing. And I finally read the book that literally, I wouldn't say it changed my life. It changed my life in a way of becoming a great dad to be able to give a constant message to my kids. But it's just so profound. So there's this book called What the Road Said. It's a short book. It's a kid's book, but every adult should read it at least once a month.
It's called what?
What the Road Said.
Oh, wow.
And the best way I was able to be kind to myself, because this book I read to them like right around the pandemic time is when I started reading to them. When I started reading this book to them, it says sometimes you have to go the wrong way on your way to the right way. And I was like absolutely floored. And there's another passage or part of the book where it says when the road curves, that's like life giving you a hug. Because it's just like sometimes it is 360, or sometimes you do have to go back and do things again. And instead of looking at it as a negative way, it's like, like you have to revisit this. So like it's just like be kind to yourself. Look back to see how far you've come, because you have a shorter way to go. And sometimes you have to go the wrong way on your way to the right way, and it is okay.
And it's okay. Yeah, I'm curious, like, because it's so seductive in this world to be a victim, to easily. It's also the social media thing we're kind of chuckling about. It's so everyone just so easily, flippantly goes negative and comments on the most beautiful post. You're like, seriously, how the fuck can you even get your mind to do that and then put it out? But it's seductive, and the comparison is not even close to yours. When I lost my dad, but when I lost everything in the fire, I could see the seduction of be the victim. And almost people, they don't know what to say, so they almost feed you in being that. Oh my God. And of course it's gnarly. There's nothing you can fucking say. Of course your upbringing is fucking gnarly, and no one can understand what that is, right? But I'm curious, like, especially at this young age, where I don't know, maybe you don't know, because there's moments in my life where I'm like, I don't know where that thought came from. Like, but I said yes to it. But there was a point where you, under tremendous abuse, like, you found a way to take care of yourself. Go to your grandfather and find a way. And there's a resiliency in that, even as a small human, right? Even as a child. And so I'm just curious, as it relates to, it's so easy for you. You could have just been a victim for the rest of your life. And to your point, I think some people, they never get out of it.
Yeah.
And it's fucking gnarly. And I don't know what the prescription is necessarily, but I'd love for you to talk about it. Maybe someone can get something from it, because I think in every level of life and every day, it's a choice whether to go, I'm gonna have the best day fucking ever, or I'm like, it's Monday or whatever the fuck.
Like the movie Groundhog's Day. People are like, it's like Groundhog's Day around here. I'm like, well, change the day.
Yeah.
At the end of, I did a workout. I created a workout called Transform 20. And that was the first time where it was like such an emotional, like, I wanted to take people on a journey. And while the workout was obviously intense, I wanted to give them mental health power throughout the process. And at the very end of a lot of the workouts, when we're, doing our final stretches, I say, breathe in that good air. Because here's what happens. like you said, people are so comfortable being a victim. Drama is so much easier to talk about. Like, why are the Real Housewives of franchise? It's so successful because like you can look at it and you can relate to it, or you can actually like talk shit on them. Like, oh my God, that person's horrible. Like, there's no self-reflection there. Really, you really are just like, pushing these people and thriving in negativity. But no shade. If you like it, keep doing it. But I'm gonna go here with something. But people forget to change space. And the best way I think I can help adults understand it, especially those who may have been in a relationship or in a very intense argument with a friend or a spouse, is like no one ever gets up to say, you know what, let me just go outside and walk around. Because my husband and I, when we have like really intense talks, we'll be like, let's go outside. And we can actually go outside together. And it completely changes the dynamic. Because a room full of negative energy is not going to change while you're in there. Right. Or if it does, somebody has to be really strong to break that, And so that's what happens with people who are stuck in this tunnel or on this path of like, I'm going to be a career victim. I'm going to be a serial victim. They never change their environment. Yeah. And I even do it with my kids. Like, I have to treat each of my kids in such a different way. One of them, if you get stern with him, he's like, I'm sorry, Papa. Like, he'll go draw me a picture that's like to apologize. The other one is like, I don't care if you're 220 pounds, let's rock. You know what I mean? Like, he will scream back, right? So I'm like, I have to handle these people in two different ways. The one, I don't like that he feels like he has to draw me a picture to apologize. So like, I'm more like, talk a little softer to him. And the other one, I just pick him up and hug him. Like, people are like, you should be more stern. I'm like, that doesn't work. In order to change his environment, his love language is physical touch and quality time. So if I pick him up and I just hug him, it calms him down at least 30%. And people don't know how to love themselves. They don't know how to change that. Going to the social media aspect. The reason why people are finding negative things to say, there has to be that victim mentality to look at a post of like, a human saving a penguin from a glacier, right? Like just something so silly, and people would like say something like, well, that's dumb. He could have fell in the water. Like, but he didn't. Like, we're actually showing you that he actually saved someone. So like, what are you attaching to? What is your brain? How is your brain attaching to greatness? Or are you only looking for the bad? And that's something that you have to be very honest with yourself about. And those people know. They know. Yeah. But if they don't know, I'm ready and willing to call them out.
Right. Yeah, it's like that comment, like, well, what is that human doing next to the penguin anyway? Like, we're just finding stuff. It's so unbelievable. Wild. And it's seductive. Again, it's an interesting dynamic here because it's, in all intents and purposes, you can build up your past and no one's going to argue about it. Like, you're going, Shaun, holy shit, man. Like, yeah, man. Like, you can be whatever you want to. You went through a lot. But in fact, no one would know that about you. Because in fact, you've transmuted it in such a way and still willing to put yourself in that position of like, I need to investigate myself. I need to put myself out and not think I know everything. And I'm like in a new track. Just the perception of feeling that you're in a transition. And then like, you're the trainer of all trainers. I'm going to get a trainer. Like, even that is there's humility in that.
Oh, do you
know? There's a learning in that.
You know how many people, when I said I had a trainer, they're like, why do you need a trainer? Right. It's the same thing when I go out to eat and I'm eating healthy and they're like, well, you can eat whatever you want. I'm like, but I didn't get this way by eating whatever I want. Why am I getting a trainer? I actually didn't. Every gold medalist needs a coach.
Right.
You rarely see someone who stays at the top of their game not having something or somebody
Right.
coach them to be better. Usually until they get, further along in age and they become the wisdomatic person.
Right.
So, yeah, like I definitely need a trainer. Even my trainer and my coach, like, I know both of them look at me, or they did, as Shaun T, and they're probably like, oh my gosh, like my bodybuilding coach was like, yeah, I was really nervous, like when we started getting you ready for your first show. One, because I'm Shaun T, he was like, you weren't jacked like you are now, even though you were lifting. And, and I'm looking at this guy like, you are my boss. Like, I don't care if I'm Shaun T. I'm like, I do everything you say to a T. Same thing with Kristen, who is my trainer. Like, I'm like, you're the boss. Like, you don't have to tiptoe around me. And I think, it does add a lot of humility. I love being a student, I love it. I just think it's great. I made myself a student, and I make myself a student throughout this process. And I think that's how you bring something new to people who, look to you for advice or expertise. That's how I'm able to go into my workouts or my podcast or my live events. Things that I'm learning about myself through other people and being a student is how I continue to inspire other people.
Yeah, it's like the whole mentorship. We all should have. I mean, you set off on another goal too. So you're like, well, to help navigate this new place, let me find a great team. We're literally never doing anything alone.
Never.
Even when we think we are. We literally are affecting everything, everyone, pretty much all the time. And we're just like siloed into thinking. So to surround yourself and create new goals and create a new team, I mean, that's everything, to be able to cultivate the life that you want. So you're kicking ass and you're going for your pro card and everything else. Like, what are you? I mean, you're so excited about it, which is I love. And like, what's Shaun T feeling right now?
I'm just like so proud of myself. I have these like.
And listen, I'm gonna pause you right there, because hearing what you went through and being able to say that, it gives me chills, right? Because I felt it.
Yeah.
You weren't throwing that as an ego thing. You were throwing that as like, I felt that when you said that.
Yeah.
And that's a beautiful thing.
Thank you. I mean, it's so, I'm an easily get an emotional person. Plus, I think you're wonderful. So I take what you say to heart. But there's so many things that fires through our brains every day. Right. And, I hope I'm not like going off script too much, but, some people, they don't really understand me. But that's because I'm being authentically me. And I'm being authentically me, I would say now at this time, pretty much 98% of the time. The times where I'm not is just, I'm probably being authentically me or the other 2% of the time, because I'm just like, I don't want to deal with that person. So I'm just going to like float through here. Yeah. But I'm being me. And I realize that being me will either bring people towards you or push them away. Right. And that's why I'm really proud of myself. One, because I'm doing like bodybuilding, I do it for me. It is 100% for me. I love it. I invest time. It reignited my love for fitness. I'm really proud of me because I've been in a relationship for 14 years who I initially looked at this person, like I couldn't tell the difference, when in the early part of my relationship, when I felt love, I didn't know if Scott was Scott or if he was my abuser. Like, imagine that.
Wow.
Like, imagine that. You're like, I'm mixing up the type of love that I want to get from a true spouse, but my past first love, like we talked about, is mixing in here to the point where I would wake up at 2 o'clock in the morning, just like mad and not know why, and start this fight with Scott until I called my therapist one day and I was like, I'm waking up at like 2 o'clock in the morning. I'm having this, like, it's crazy. And she was like, what time were you abused when you were a kid?
Oh my God.
Chills. I was like, oh my God.
Wow.
Like literally in the middle of the night. And it wasn't until then where I was like, okay. So like, so being in a relationship for 14 years and surviving that and being honest, how like humbled I had to be to, it's crazy. So, and all of that. And like I was saying, like all these things fire through your brain and you have to pick and choose what you're going to give power to. And I suffered from anxiety a lot a few years ago. And I just started meditating. And one of the best things that I heard during meditation, which everyone knows, is like, like act like clouds are going by in the sky. And sometimes you see a duck, sometimes you see a boat, sometimes you see a lion. Like if we look at clouds, we see different things. And we're just like, just let the clouds flow by. And that was like so healing to me. And I think that's the same thing, like when it deals with my brain, I'm like, all these things are firing in my brain and I just don't let it get jumbled. I'm just like, where am I now? Oh my gosh, I feel really good. I'm really proud of myself. I'm a great dad. I'm a great husband. I really care about people. And so, it takes a lot of time and self-discovery and, honesty and just being embarrassed. You have to be able to be embarrassed, even embarrassed by yourself. The mirror, in my book, I talk about having these mirror moments. The mirror was my best friend when I was 16 years old because I was able to look in the mirror and say, you're gay. After that, I literally didn't give a fuck. I was like, I don't care who thinks I'm gay, who knows I'm gay. Like, so it's just like, I have this statement that I don't know a lot of people know, or understand, but it's, it says to believe in yourself, you must accept yourself. To accept yourself, you must trust in your power to believe. It's just like, it is all intertwined. And so I know I spoke a lot there, but
no, it's amazing because I could imagine that you had to come up against your representation of love. And so having a committed relationship and then all of a sudden that wrestling had to happen. You had to break the patterns of the abuser to someone that was loving you. And ultimately that steers back to you, right? And the fact that because if you don't, I would only imagine if you don't rectify that, you will forever not find the very thing that you want, desire, truly have for yourself. And so you had this representation in Scott that was held up, but then your programming threw it in the face of like, and it's just so, I can't imagine what was going on at that time. And Scott's got to be going, holy shit. Did he know a lot of the story at the time? Did you unpack a lot of it? Or
he knew. Actually, it's so weird. I don't even remember necessarily because he was like right by my side the entire time. Like I would come home from therapy, I would tell him about it. He was just like so patient. He was like incredibly patient, and it's really cool because we get to do that for each other. He had his thing, I had my thing, and but yeah, he was just incredibly patient, which is, I'm much more calm because of him. Because we are polar opposites. We make a joke all the time. I'm like, I'm from Jersey, which is loud, and we're always ready to fight. And he's from Seattle. They just want to hug trees, right?
Right.
So we like literally, we looked at each other not realizing like, I want to be like that. And so now we literally meet in the middle. Sometimes I'm like, you act like you from Jersey a little bit too much. Like you need to go hug those trees again.
Hey, I'm rubbing off on you too much.
I'm like,
pull it back.
All right, yeah. Which I like because he was a people pleaser for so long, and I'm like, you don't have to please. Like, why?
Right.
Once you people who talk trash about you and gossip about you, they literally forget about you 3 seconds later.
Right.
But you remember it.
Right.
I was like, so, people are going to get mad at you. They're going to get mad at you until they get the thing done that they wanted you to do and they find someone else to do it. But you have to carry that with you. I was like, it's okay to say no.
Right. What are you excited about right now?
Oh, well, first of all, I am so excited to be a dad. It is like so wonderful. I think that, I used to struggle with, am I excited to be a dad because I didn't have one,
Right.
I never met my biological father and my stepfather molested me. Like, is that why I'm excited? So I definitely had to but I'm just like, I think it is the worst job in the world. I'm not even gonna lie. People are like, oh my gosh, it's so wonderful. It's not really that wonderful until they're like 5.
Right.
Then it becomes a little bit better, But now it's just like, to be able to raise 2 humans to be 100% themselves and to ask questions, and their teacher. So they got into the Excel program and they're going into 1st grade, and we got a letter and they were like, they're going to Excel program and they scored like really high. And I'm like, cool. But then I talked to the teacher after school one day and she was like, your kids are my smartest students and they're the best students, but they're also the hardest students I have. And I'm like, yes. And she loves it. She's like, because they're so smart, because we've never said, because I said so. And we've never said, because I'm your dad or because I'm an adult. They can ask 13 questions in a row as to why, and we answer those questions. And I'm like, yeah, some people might think like as a kid, that's like disrespectful. You should. But I'm like, when they get older, I want them to be able to process things in a way that works for them. Just before I left here, the night before I flew to Los Angeles, I gave them this big lesson on peer pressure, and because they're starting to have more friends and, so anyway, it's really challenging. It's really fun. It's like a puzzle. And I know there are going to be rough times and I'm here for it. So I'm really excited to be a dad. I just can't wait to see. I love seeing them every day because they change. And I'm excited about a lot. I just love it. I guess I get excited to do a dancing TikTok. Like, it's so ridiculous. Like, I'm like, oh my gosh, I can still actually do that when my knees are torn up. I can't drop it to the floor anymore, but I try. Again, fitness and bodybuilding is just wonderful. I'm so excited. I'm speaking into existence. I'm so excited to get my pro card. And in a month after I get my pro card, hopefully I'm going to do my first pro show. I'm like, I don't care.
It's only a month away.
I'm going to, my show is 2 months away, but if I get my pro card, my first pro show I want to do is a month after that.
Wow. And
hopefully I get it. And I want to get on the stage with the pros because I want to get demolished. Like for me, I'm not going to embarrass myself because I know I have a great body and I work hard, but there's a difference. I used to go into competitions like track and field, and I'd say mostly track and field and tennis. And I would be like, I hated losing more than I liked winning, and this has taught me like I don't want to lose, but I'm like, I'm totally okay with losing or not placing in the top because I just think it's all the work that you do in this sport is all up here. Yeah, it's physical, but like on the day of competition, they're not like, let's see you could do the heaviest lat pull downs for, 15 reps, right?
Right.
You've done all the work. Now you just get in there, you showcase what you've done. So it's less of I don't know, I just find it to be just incredibly humbling and fun. And it's a combination of, to me, especially being a classic physique competitor, it's a combination of fitness. You have to dig deep, which we know I love. I mean, I created Insanity. So I love like destroying myself in a workout. But then I get to go on stage, which is something I love to do. And then when I get to pose for classic physique, my classic physique routine is more of like a dance. So it literally encompasses everything that I love. And I'll finish by saying this, like so many people get nervous. like all the guys are lined up backstage and females, you know, we're all like, oh my gosh, like, you know, everybody's like, I'm just like, I hate getting on stage. And I'm like, all of y'all can hate getting on stage. I'm like, get me to the lights, because that's where I
right. You've been built for it.
Get me to the lights.
Yeah. I mean, it's amazing because you get to use all of that skill and all of the love that you have for movement. I mean, the movement of even, I mean, it's already in you, right?
It's just like so great.
Yeah.
I love it.
It's a beautiful sport. The closest I ever came, this is funny,
I was actually going to ask if you ever thought about it.
I trained a girlfriend back in the day in Colorado, and she did well as her first time, but you'll find I've never publicly shared the story. So I get a call, and I used to love Harley Davidsons, and I haven't ridden in a while. So in my Boulder, Colorado, I moved out right after graduation. All of a sudden, I get a bunch of people calling me on one day going, in Denver at the Stampede, this big ass country bar, they're having a competition to win a Harley Davidson.
Oh.
I was like, well, what the fuck's what's the competition? It's called the Best Chest of the West. And
that is so
and here's what they do. Every Wednesday, whoever shows up and does the competition, I'll tell you what that is, then that winner goes, and the next 10 winners, there's a final, right? So you wear a cowboy hat, don't wear a shirt, and you wear cowboy boots, and you can wear, I had chaps and the whole fucking thing.
Let's go.
So I of course go into that mindset. I trained like a bodybuilder. I came in like shredded, and I win the first Wednesday, and I go to so then 10 weeks go by or whatever that is, and then like Tom Twillinger, who is the ex Mr. USA, was there, and all of this stuff. So it was as close as I was going to get. But I came in, I didn't have the size of them, but I came in at that time just shredded. And I was all pumped up. Anyway, I get down to the last two, and they said crowd response is 50%, and then the judges
obviously.
And so, you know, I'm dancing around, and you just
yes, let's go, Dan.
Right? And then it came down to it. I'm listening to the crowd going, "Fuck, I won." I'm hearing, and I didn't win. Yes. I got second place.
Oh, you didn't win.
Didn't win.
Oh,
and apparently, which I found out later, the guy that won was the ex-security guard for the entire place.
Oh,
so I'm like, come on. And even the head person who organized the whole thing kind of covertly said, I'm sorry. But that was it. The legend of all my friends. One of my Harley riding buddies got kicked out because he was starting fights. He goes, it's rigged. But
technically you won. So
in my mind, I'm still won.
Man, politics.
Come on, man. I mean, that's a little tricky with bodybuilding too, because there is inherently that subjective side of it. I mean, they can't measure how big your abs are, the separation necessarily. But
you know what I learned, which was really cool about bodybuilding, at least in all of bodybuilding, to be quite honest, is like the symmetry of your body, you know? And I thank my mom every day. I'm like completely symmetrical. And my coach, and when I train with Kristen, they are like, like they are like literally ice picking my body to make sure it's like very symmetrical. So I love that. It's just so cool, man.
Yeah, it's amazing. And if you look at it like this, like Arnold used to look like, hey, you almost subjectively yourself and going, how can I better this Play-Doh that we get? Yeah. Love you, man.
I love you too.
Yeah, thank you for coming, and I'm stoked, and I can't wait for you to get that pro card.
Let's go.
And kick some ass. And anytime you want to jump on the podcast again and jump down any rabbit hole, because I love the story, and I wasn't expecting all of the things that you shared, and I'm really grateful for your transparency. And that's the charm of you. Whether people have met you in person at Beachbody, or the charm of you is your transparency and your love, and that is so out there, and so it's your superpower, dude.
Thank you.
Yeah.
You know, it's so interesting to I'm so transparent and I'm very honest. You know, I mean, when you hide something like that about yourself for so long, I tell people, I'm like, if you ask me a question, make sure you want the answer, because I'm going to give you the answer. And, you know, even to just business things, like, I'm not afraid to say no, because this is how I feel. I look ahead to make sure that if this is something I'm going to do, I really want to do it. And if it's not something I want to do, like, you might be upset about it, but I'm not going to give you 100% of what I can give you. And so I just love, you know, and I believe that that's a part of love. Like, honesty is a part of, like, really respecting the people that you're working with or you're in a relationship with. And, you know, I'll finish by saying this. I'm a golden rule kind of person. When I was in first grade, I remember looking up at above the chalkboard, and had the alphabet. And I remember it had, like, your left and your right. Like, there was this monkey that showed, like, the kids their left hand versus their right hand. And then there was, like, a little scroll that said, do unto others as you would have others do unto you. And I was like, this literally at, like, I think I was 6. I was like, this is the coolest thing. Like, because I just, even as a young child, you know, and this is before I even got abused, I was just like, oh, wow, like this is how the world can treat people. And so even with the world the way it is now, I still follow the golden rule.
Yeah. Well, you practice what you preach. And thank you for impacting me and the people and the millions that you've met and the millions that you haven't met. And keep being you, because you're affecting the world. Thank you.
Thanks. Let's get you back on the stage so you can get shredded again.
Gotta win that Harley, or just buy one.
Let's win it. The winning is more fun.
It's kind of,
we could go buy it now, but let's go win it.
Let's bring it back. We'll bring back the Stampede. Yeah, beautiful.
Thank you.
Thank you, man.
I appreciate it.